You've been listening to Let's Talk About It. Well, you could have been the show, and those who the staff and management the best variety of gospel music in 1420 AM. Definitely tap. Good morning. It's 9 a.m. It's time for the community update broadcast with Clinton Mayor, the Honorable Shelby Daly. You can those who have management of the best variety of gospel music in 1420 AM WFLP. Good morning, Mayor. It is a super Saturday.
Good morning, Sister D. I want to welcome all the listeners from Let's Talk About It on WFLT this morning. Today we have a wonderful informational packed show for you guys. You want to make sure you get your pen and paper out and available to make sure you take notes, because it's going to be one of those educational, edifying broadcasts to make sure that we educate our users. But we always want to make sure we always reach out to our Lord and Savior every morning, and also reach out to those families who lost loved ones. And I also want to send a special prayer out to the Cartwell family for the loss of their loved one, Donald Cartwell. Was a friend of mine in high school. We wrestled on the same team. And so it was a tremendous loss to this full community. And so we definitely want to remember him and his family in our prayers, but also we want to pray for our city. And today I have a great friend of mine from the city of Grand Rapids, State Representative David Legrand. He and I served, and he has some exciting news for the state of Michigan. But today I'm going to ask him in another official capacity in which he has. I want him to give us a word of prayer this morning. Representative Legrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's pray. Lord, be with the people who are listening to this radio station this morning. Give them your power, give them your strength, give them your confidence. And Lord, we ask that the power of your Spirit be with us today and every day as we move forward and we try to do justice in our world, and we try to show mercy, and we try to show love, and help us when we can't help ourselves. Lord, you are bigger than us. You are better than us. You are all that we can hope to aspire to do. So help us, empower us, and show us ways when it looks like there is no way. And help us to get up when we are knocked down. And help us to always remember to make others more important than ourselves, because that is what Jesus told us to do. Amen.
Amen. And thank you for that, Representative Legrand. And today, we're still in the midst of the middle of a pandemic. COVID-19 has stricken our world and our country and our state of Michigan. And we still want to give updates as it relates to that, and who's been guiding the city of Flint through that whole hysteria of making sure that we protect and preserve our lives in the community is Dr. Lawrence Reynolds and also Dr. Furholden. But Dr. Reynolds, how are we doing, and what should we be doing still? And I know residents have got this message, but I'm very concerned because I've seen young people, millennials, engaging one another as if this is no longer amongst us. And so can you help us out, Dr. Reynolds?
Oh, yes. We had 47 new cases of COVID in Genesee County reported for the last 24 hours. And previously, there were 58 new cases. And I share this information so you understand that COVID does not sleep. And the things that we've been asking folks to do: wear your mask, wash your hands, physical distance, avoid crowds. When you have family gatherings, you have to separate the households so you don't know who's carrying COVID. And I'm not trying to get people fearful. We're supposed to act intelligently under these circumstances. Keep your masks on. And as Dr. Furholden would say, and make sure you cover your nose. Otherwise, the mask is totally useless. And so these are the things that we must do, because COVID has not stopped. We have no treatment for it. We have no cure for it. And let me be perfectly clear. If we have an effective vaccine for adults by next year, that will be a miracle. I don't expect anything until spring. And then if we have the vaccine, will it be distributed? And then there are other questions we have to be very clear on. Is the vaccine being tested for children? No, it is not being tested for children right now. The typical pattern is it's developed for adults first and then children. So please, Don't be fooled by the headlines that you may hear. It will take time. And so our main weapon is to think, to wear our mask, to wash our hands, and avoid crowds.
Right. And so before we get to Dr. Furholden on this, we want to make sure that we take all the precautionary measures to make sure as we try to reestablish some symptoms of normalcy in our society, we want to make sure that we do everything to protect ourselves and our family. Now, the governor gave and released some of the restrictions on the state of Michigan yesterday. Some of the things that she will be reactivating and allowing to open is bowling alleys. Also movie theaters, and these are things, and she's going to increase the capacity in which we can gather indoors and outdoors. But before you do that, I want everybody to get tested. We have 3 testing sites in the city of Flint currently operating now. Now, if you were not being tested because you were afraid to be having the nasal swab, we have saliva testing as well. So we have Bethel United Methodist Church, which is located at 1309 Ballinger Highway, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Macedonia Baptist Church, 5443 North Saginaw Street, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Word of Life Church, located at 460 West Atherton Road, testing from 12 noon to 6 p.m. on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And so go get tested before you start to commune in these larger gatherings sanctioned by the state, before you go to the movie theater or before you go out to the bowling alley. And I ask you to go to the state of Michigan's website to find out other areas that's going to be open. Now, we know we have a large faith base in the city of Flint. And so before we reactivate church services inside of our houses of worship, make sure we take all the precautionary needs to make sure that we maintain a safety. If you need masks, if you need PPE gear, I will give it to you from City Hall. You can call City Hall at 410-2020, 410-2020. Order the supplies for your faith-based organization. We will provide that for you to make sure that if you choose to go back into your sanctuary, that you will be safe. Dr. Furholden, can you enlighten us to any more on that? Okay. Well, I think she has herself on mute right now, but we'll go back to Dr. Furholden for that particular piece. But also, we want to make sure that you do everything to protect yourself and your family. Wash your hands, maintain social distancing, and wear your mask. And pay attention to our health professionals and our scientists as they give you the information to make sure that we can maintain a safe lifestyle in this COVID environment. Now, good news on the other horizon. There's been where we're getting very close to the end of the 2020 census. 10 minutes for 10 years of funding. This community represents to gain or lose $3 billion over the next 10 years. We cannot afford to lose those resources. The person who we have tasked in the city of Flint to be able to lead that effort for us is Tony Turner. We started about a year late, but as soon as I hit the ground here in the city of Flint, we galvanized our forces. We put the resources that was needed to be available to get everybody counted. And Tony, there was a recent court ruling saying that instead of the deadline being September 30th, it now will be October 30th, but it's some uniqueness to that verdict. Can you enlighten us and tell us where we are as a community very succinctly?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning to everybody. Right now, we're closing in on 99%, which is the official closeout. The city of Flint is actually at 96% in our area, which means 96% of all residences where people can stay has been accounted for and has been counted. This is very important to know, but we don't want to stop. We are still hard at work. We still want people to yet talk to their sons, daughters, uncles, family members, make it a general conversation to go to my2020census.gov or call 844-330-2020 to be counted. Also, we have some activities coming up today and next week, where you can actually go and have a great time, have some food, and take part in some community activity. Today, September 26th, at Hasselbrain Senior Center at 1002 Home Avenue. We have a family day with free food, music, prizes, and it is centered around the census. So you can go there, or you can go to, we have a food drive coming up on Tuesday, and a Taco Tuesday coming up on Tuesday also, where you can go and actually be registered for the census if you have not done so. And you can see all of these activities at the City of Flint website, which is cityoflint.com/2020. So it's very important, as Mayor Neely said, to complete the census. The census is worth $3 billion, and that's what we have in jeopardy. And not only that, we're looking at redistricting and maintaining our representation in Congress, and these funds are all for programs such as Head Start, WIC, Section 8, shelters for women, homeless, disabled veterans, everything that you can think of. It affects our quality of life for the next 10 years. So remember, 10 minutes, 9 questions will affect $300 million in funding over each year for the next 10 years. So thank you, everybody. Please continue to fill out that census, even though it has been extended. We don't want to stop. We want to keep going until it is the very end.
Right, and Tony, you have been noticed doing a very good job in this 2020 census count, but you have also called me a taskmaster. I think that was the most kindest way that you can call me as it relates to this, and we will continue to push until the very last moment to make sure that we count every resident inside this community, because it's important to our next generation. But I want to just thank you, Tony, for agreeing to come on board. When I first got here, when I noticed that there was no efforts, no infrastructure to count the residents in this community, and I was very surprised by that. And usually those activities start more than a year out to be able to prepare for a full task force to be able to count residents in local communities. And I want to thank you for guiding us through that process. I worked with you in 2010 census count, so I know the quality of the work that you put forth. And so I wanted to make sure for 2020 we had an expert on the ground. And so I want to just personally thank you publicly for the great work that you're doing. And I'm saying doing because we're not done yet until the time limit is up. So the October 30th extension, does that apply to the city of Flint as well, or is that only to those communities who have a very low count in their system?
No, that applies to the city of Flint as well. And I've made that very clear on behalf of the mayor's office and the city of Flint to the federal government that we yet want resources to stay here on the ground, because we have about 6% of our population that are the very, very, very hardest to reach. And it's an opportunity to do this right for the first time in over 3 decennial censuses. So we have this opportunity to keep pushing to the very end to count those citizens that traditionally we never get counted. So this, yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, this is extended to the city of Flint, and it's a great opportunity to make sure that we get a very accurate and complete count. And we're going to take advantage of it.
Right. And so I think we've, even in this extraordinary times of with this pandemic amongst us, I think we still did much better than previous census count, census taking the decades that they've been going. Can you help me with that? I got kind of twisted up on the words, but in previous counts, how are we doing compared to previous counts outside of this one?
Well, for instance, 2010, we did a total closeout at 79.8%. This year, just to give you an indication, we're now at a total closeout of 96%. I think what it is, really, it is the heart of our city. We're a very resilient city. We meet barriers, we meet issues head on. And when the time comes to make it an issue to make things matter, we come together as a city and matter. When we did the final push over these last 2.5 months of educating the community, galvanizing the community came on board. They understood what was at stake, and they came on board and they did what was necessary, and that was completing those forms. So yes, we have broken those records. We was actually on a downward trend. But even in the midst of this COVID-19, we actually beat our prior closeout totals, And we're headed toward the first time in my 30 years of being involved with the U.S. Census Bureau, having worked from and now working for the city of Flint, that I've seen a closeout at this level. So yes, this is something that we must congratulate ourselves with a team effort. There was many partners. And again, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for this opportunity to humbly serve my city.
Right. And I want to thank Pastor Daniel Moore of Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church and all the faith-based organizations and all the other partners in which we had in this effort. But the bell has not rung just yet. We still have about 6% more to go. Let's do the job, a very, very good job to make sure that the next generation will be represented in the revenues that we can receive from our federal partners. And so we're just thankful to God. I mean, it's a bouquet of emotions, but the only thing I want to convey is the emotion of gratitude. But much more than that, we have another exciting piece of news, something that my ex-colleague, and also colleague of State Representative Cynthia Neely, State Representative David Legrand has been diligently working since the time that he got to the State House on a justice reform package. He and I both know how important it is for people to have a second start at life, to return to citizenship and have an opportunity to be productive citizens without being handicapped, not being able to walk through life with a prosthetic on because you have made one mistake in your life. And the criminal justice reform pieces that you know that I've done these things, at least 2 workshops every year in this community to try to expunge felonies off of people's records so they can get housing, so they can get good opportunities to work and things of that nature. And it was always a high hurdle to jump over because the state law says currently that you couldn't do it if you didn't reach this measurement. Now, Representative Legrand, and you have some exciting news for Flint residents that may benefit from this legislation package that you put forth and you fought for more than a year. And we know we've been fighting for more than 4 years and trying to change the laws. And can you give us the exciting news?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Sheldon?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody can hear you. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for all of your work on this. I'm sure your listeners know, and maybe it goes without saying, but you and I have been in the trenches on this for years, and it for me it was always a bittersweet experience because you could help some people, but 9 out of 10 people who called me for help on this issue, I had to turn them away and tell them, I'm sorry, the door is too narrow, you don't fit through the door, because in Michigan we had a very narrow situation for eligibility for expungement. So the single most important thing I want your listeners to know is that within days, I suspect, the governor is going to sign into the legislation a package that we've been working on for 20 months now. And so help is here. If you have been disappointed previously at expungement fairs or in conversations with people who understand the system, now is a time for new hope. And so I want to talk and Mr. Mayor, I'm going to repeat myself sometimes because I think this is so important and it's so transformative that I'd rather say it 4 times so people understand it and remember it than say it once and have it go too fast. So the most important thing I want people to know today, right now, is that there is hope because we did the 2 big things we did, and I'll get to the second one, which is automatic expungement. That's coming in a while, a couple years. But what we are doing immediately is opening the door wider. So until now, if you had 1 felony on your record any time in your life, that was the maximum that you had an opportunity to get expunged. Now, with the passage of this bill, judges are going to be able to have authority to expunge up to 4 select felonies. Now, just so that people don't get too excited, life offenses are not expungible. They haven't ever been expungible, and they're still not expungible. But a host of things that trap people, like writing bad check or low-level drug offenses, or but the things that can still be felonies, those were locked out on the other side of forgiveness before, and now they are going to be, those people with those convictions are going to have a new opportunity to get expungement. The other exciting, so that's really, really important and exciting. The other really important, exciting thing is this, it used to be you could only get 2 misdemeanors in your whole life expunged. That's the old world. That's today, because the governor still hasn't signed this. But tomorrow or the next day, this bill package allows judges to wipe away unlimited number of 90-day misdemeanors. Unlimited. So if you got a DWLS, if you got, sometimes I use acronyms, if you got a suspended license charge, if you got a no operation on person charge, if you got a trespassing charge, if you got a loitering charge, you could have 20 of them, and the judge could forgive them all, and expunge them all. So misdemeanors, there's no limit on how many the judge can expunge of those. Now, again, I'm a lawyer, so let me be a little careful. There are 1-year misdemeanors. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the normal misdemeanors. That category, unlimited number of those can be expunged. Unlimited. And it gets better. Driving offenses are now included. So for decades, forever in my memory, any driving offense like DWS was not eligible for expungement. Now it's going to be eligible. So people can get things that took away their driver's licenses and stopped them getting driver's licenses. Those are now expungible. Now there's more good news. I keep giving the good news that it's hard to keep track of all this. That's why this is wonderful, wonderful stuff, but I want it to sink in. So to say it again, second time, more than 1 felony now. Unlimited number of misdemeanors. Driving offenses are now eligible under this new package. Now, it gets better. Misdemeanors, it used to be you had to wait 5 years with no new convictions to get expungements. For misdemeanors, people are now going to be eligible after 3 years. So a faster timeline to get misdemeanors off your record. Right. And the final piece is marijuana misdemeanor convictions, so possession and use, and there are thousands, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of these out in our communities. People who get, pulled over by the police and all they got is a joint in their pocket and all of a sudden they're criminals. This is a time for us to wake up and smell the coffee because that's not illegal anymore. So we worked hard to get to a point that, and Mayor Neely and I both knew Representative Robinson out of Detroit, who tragically died of COVID. And we have a bill sort of in his memory, which deals with marijuana. And what we're doing with marijuana is you can get those misdemeanor charges immediately taken off your record. No wait period.
Right. And Isaac, that bill was originally one of the ones I did in the last session, and Isaac took up the mantle and really fought very hard to really get it across the finish line. And now we're just waiting on the governor to sign that. But I want to, because we got a few more minutes on our radio broadcast, and then we go into our Facebook Burst program. So I do want to give an opportunity to give a good summary of what it is that now we have opened the door wider, as Representative Legrand said. Is now I know I do 2 restorative justice workshops every year. And so I know the impediments and the past impediments to try to get people another fresh start at life, to become a productive citizen in this community without those handicaps. And so this is a great, great thing for the state of Michigan and for those individuals that's looking desperately for a second chance at being a productive citizen. And so I want to give the panel here an opportunity to ask you maybe 1 or 2 questions. Is there any questions from you, Dr. Verholden or Dr. Reynolds or Tony to David Legrand, Representative Legrand, about this package? Okay.
Yeah. When you have a misdemeanor, how do you verify that it has been removed? Your record has been expunged? And is there a process or an office where you check if there's some discrepancy?
That's a good question. And the answer is that how that happens right now is the most important part of this is, do things get reported out to, agencies like, because a lot of this is barriers to housing and barriers to employment. So the answer is the courts, the individual courts where these things happen, have always dealt with that and will continue to deal with that. So let's say you've had a misdemeanor in the Flint City District Court. Well, that's where you have to go to apply for expungement. And so they are the central clearinghouse for making sure that the records get dealt with appropriately. Now, the other thing I want to say is that gets a little more complicated with the second part of this bill package, which I didn't want to talk about now because there's nothing for people to do today. But the second part is we're going to have a process to have this happen automatically for people. It will take a little longer than the 5 years, but eventually we're going to have convictions just fall off people's records. And we're going to be the first state in the country to do this for low-level felonies and misdemeanors. And it's going to help about 1 million people, in my estimation. So this is going to be, it's going to be amazing, but that's going to take a little longer to work out to have how that happens automatically and how that data gets processed automatically. Right now, we already have a process for expungement, and that's the process that will happen with the expanded process.
Right, and on behalf of the residents of the city of Flint, and also from me as a mayor now, I want to thank you, Representative Legrand, for your very hard work. No one really gets the opportunity to see how hard people work to change laws to improve the quality of life for residents of this entire state. And I want to tell the residents here in the city of Flint that there was no greater champion on the House floor for these rights, for the least of us. David always has championed these things, and he was always a great ally to me on the floor. And as I was the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus for the state of Michigan, we look for our allies across the way, and sometimes our allies that don't look like us. But David was always there. David was there locking arms with us on the House floor. David, you have always been a true champion of the people of the state of Michigan and of this country. And I, for one, really always appreciated you doing that. And so he represents Grand Rapids, and no one would expect a representative from Grand Rapids champion issues for cities like Detroit or Flint or Saginaw. He is a lawyer by profession. He does well in his law practice. And so no one expects a person of this caliber to really champion those issues, but it comes from the roots. His father was a pastor for many years, and then David traveled the country with his father as a young child, as his father ministered to members of the state of Michigan. But David, go ahead with a few last words. We got a couple minutes left on the radio broadcast, and then we go into our Facebook Burst program. Then we have some great news from Dr. Furholden. Go ahead, David.
Well, right back at you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, it was such a joy to work with you. The people of Flint are lucky to have you. The legislature's maybe the legislature's lucky to lose you because we got your wife.
That's right.
But so I'm sure all your listeners know that, and it's a joy to work with her too. She is working for justice and peace, just like you were in the legislature every day. But I am so happy that you are doing what you're doing in Flint, and that the people of Flint get the benefit of your heart and your, there are some people, the love just shines out of them, and you're one of them, Mr. Mayor. And I love you, and I love the work that you do, and the joy that you bring to service. And you've always been a role model for me and an example. And I'm just so proud to call you brother, and to be able to work with you on these things.
Right. And we stand by we're ending our radio broadcast now, but we will stand by for our Facebook Burst program. And then we will continue to talk about the great news and exciting news for residents inside the state of Michigan for our second chance. And then we'll also talk about our pandemic. And then we'll talk to Dr. Furholden about the advisory task force and the meetings that they've been having and some exciting news around that. And as well, we keep talking and pushing for our 2020 census. I want to thank all the listeners of WFLT. I love you, Mom. And yes, we are able to go to breakfast again today. We will be having a prayer vigil at City Hall today at 12 noon. If you want to be inclined to come down, please come down and join us. Prayer vigil at the parking lot behind City Hall. It is not organized by the city of Flint, but we allowed it to happen here today. I love you, Mom. God bless. Thank you, WFLT. Stand by for our Facebook Burst program. All right, we're gonna, Dr. Furhold, I'm gonna put you back into the main line for our Facebook Burst program. So hold on, I'll call you right back on our conference call.
Okay.
Stand by, guys. I'm calling Dr. Furholden. She had dropped off the original line. Hold on, I'm gonna add her back in for our Facebook Burst program. Okay, I'm adding you back in. Okay, we're all back. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and start off our Facebook Burst program, and we'll start it off, and we'll kick it off with you, Dr. Furholden. Some exciting news from the advisory task force to our law enforcement. We know that civil unrest continues throughout our country as it relates to the verdict on the Breonna Taylor case and the reactivation of some emotions about the lack of justice around our country. And I know that you are the vice chair of the advisory task force to our law enforcement officers here in the city of Flint. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my partner on that is Pastor Jeffrey Hawkins. He's the chair. I'm currently the vice chair. We've got some really amazing people reflective of, our great complexity and variety all across the city of Flint. We have had our first two meetings. We have a meeting scheduled. We got our sleeves rolled up. We're doing the work to really solidify what our vision is and our mission for this task force and what are the major activities that we plan on undertaking. Right now, we got a committee of 9. Your declaration called for 11. We purposely didn't fill all the seats because we wanted to get the committee together and let them have a say and fill in those last 2 seats, and also give a chance for us to get started and figure out where we might have gaps in representation or thought or perspective. So we'll be going back to the pool of applications, looking to fill 2 more seats for that task force. I can tell you the early traction that we have is beautiful. I'm really amazed at the tremendous wisdom and the commitment of this group. Many of them, if they weren't already steeped in models for community policing and all of that, we all have our own lived experience, but they have really many of them built themselves up as mini experts. We've already been getting a lot of outreach from community. We have a designated email address right now, which is cityofflinttaskforce@gmail.com. We've had some really good things and suggestions come in from residents for things that they'd like to see. So, within about the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think we'll really have ourselves very well organized. We'll have the committee finalized, and we'll be able to kind of roll out to the community what it is that we plan on undertaking as our first kind of initial effort.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job, and I love the enthusiasm from every person that's been on the advisory task force, providing us some good opportunities to get good information and bridge the gap back to community. The city of Flint is also been on the leading edge of some things. We have taken some bold steps. We here in the city of Flint, we have also declared racism as a mental health issue, also provided an ordinance about false reporting on people just because of the color of their skin, and also some of the things that we've done as far as observing Juneteenth, which is the oldest African-American holiday in this country, we observe it now as an official holiday in the city of Flint. So we've taken some bold, courageous steps. And also now we're going to be in dialogue with the police chief as it relates to no-knock search warrants, for drug cases inside the city of Flint, banning those type of search and seizures of search warrants inside the city of Flint. And so we have been guiding and leading the way in many things that we've been doing, and that has not come without criticism. But we definitely want to make sure that we are listening and have a listening ear to our advisors. And I want to thank you for stepping up to be the vice chair of that amongst all of your other responsibilities and also helping us through this pandemic. And so, but definitely I want to turn it to a friend of mine, a brother in Christ, Representative David Legrand from the Grand Rapids area, talking about the exciting news of a new bill package that's been delivered to the governor's desk. And I want people to understand how difficult it is to get a piece of legislation through, especially when you're in the minority party. Right now, the House and the Senate are controlled by a Republican majority. And for a Democrat to get a bill through the process of a Republican House and Senate and get it to the governor's desk, it is tremendously challenging to do so, because the majority rules in all aspects when we talk about state government when they have the majority. That means all committee chairs are Republicans. The Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the Senate, all committee chairs in the Senate and House are Republican controlled. And you have to get their permission in order to even get your bill, even to be able to get looked at, and then to be discussed in a committee, which every committee has a Republican majority. And then you have to get some of your Republican colleagues to vote for it to even get a chance. And then after that process is done in a committee, you have to get it to the floor. And then you have to get the speaker, which is Republican, to be able to say that we will even give it a consideration for a vote by the full members of each chamber. And each chamber is majority Republican. And for a Democratic bill to make it through those processes, it is tremendously challenging. And previously, when I served in my tenure there, for the most part, 95% of it was under a Republican House, Senate, and governor. I was blessed to get the level of laws changed through that whole process. It's challenging. And for when we talk about issues that faces communities of low to moderate income families and a majority communities of color, the criminal justice system needed an overhaul and a reform. So now we have pieces of that moving, and to no little part, it's been David Legrand from Grand Rapids who led those bill packages. The bill packages started out as 7 bill packages. I think I was an original member. I had a bill in that package originally, this term and last term. And we finally got 4 big, mighty pieces to the governor's desk. And David, go ahead and describe the work and how it's going to improve the quality of life for residents inside these communities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I will, and boy, you explaining that process made me tired all over again. It was a lot of work, and a lot of begging and pleading and cajoling and witnessing but we're here. And so 2 things. One, on the horizon, what's down the road a couple of years, we're going to start seeing in Michigan people automatically getting criminal records cleaned up if they fit the criteria. And that's amazing. We're going to be the first state in the country to do automatic expungement on the level that we're doing it. So that's going to be transformative. But right now, the thing that everybody listening to this needs to know is there is good news today. As soon as the governor signs this bill package, and she's going to, we are going to widen eligibility for expungement. So 4 things are going to happen that are worth remembering. 1, in the past, any driving offenses were not eligible for expungement. Now they're going to be eligible for expungement, almost all of them. Second of all, it's going to be a faster track for getting misdemeanors off people's records. It used to be 5 years. Now it's going to we've narrowed that to 3 years. And unlimited misdemeanors are going to be eligible for expungement. Unlimited. Used to be just 2. Third, felonies. Used to be just 1 felony. Now up to 4 select eligible felonies can be expunged. So that's a huge expansion. And finally, immediate eligibility for expungement of marijuana possession and use charges. So if you've got a possession or use charge, you can get it off your record immediately. No 3-year wait, not even a 3-year wait. You can get it done now. So those things are all, I think, transformative. They're going to help hundreds of thousands of people. So if you know people who have been turned away before, who have, and Mr. Mayor, you and I have both worked on this for years. You held expungement fairs, and having to give people a lot of bad news because the criteria for expungement was very narrow. It's going to be so much wider now. So if you've been disappointed in the past, now is the time for hope.
Right. And, I'm so excited about this, and people got to understand that the magnitude and how it's going to change lives. And I started on this journey as a city council person when I was having dinner with a family of my youngest daughter was a basketball player. And, when you have basketball families, you usually commune together and you become one big family. And the father told me that he had made a mistake many, many years ago when he was a teenager. And he was having difficulty even into his late 40s because he always had to check a box. And I said, I made a commitment at that time looking for ways to be able to help individuals such as my friend to be able to say, okay, he made a mistake very young in his life. He has been a productive citizen, raising a family, but he still had that albatross around his neck. I started on that journey more than 20 years ago, trying to help families like this one. And today was a great day when I heard about it. I had to shield my excitement a little bit with the other state representative, Cynthia Neely, because she also has 2 bills on the governor's desk as well to be signed. So I had to make sure I was equally enthusiastic about her getting some the potential of laws passed in the state of Michigan that she has participated in helping Michiganders. But when I heard about the bill package for criminal justice reform, I was really, really excited. And so what I'm going to do, David, is make a commitment right now to the residents of the city of Flint and those that are listening, watching on Facebook, that as soon as the governor signs this into law, I'm going to hold another restorative justice fair very quickly behind it so we can educate people in a bigger and broader way. And I'm going to ask you to be a part of it. And so what we're going to do is use the format of the technology, and we'll have a big statewide, maybe a region-wide Zoom conference call. And I'm going to ask you to lead the way with us to the restorative justice and get people to the new parameters of your justice reform bill package that's sitting on the governor's desk.
That'll be great. I mean, I cannot wait to get started helping people on this because, it turns out that and this is important for people to know who know people, is that if people who get their criminal record cleaned up, on average, their earning incomes go up 24% if they can clean up their record, and that earning increase stays up for the rest of their lives. So, if you know someone, you gotta urge them and tell them the good news, because this will help them to help themselves. But it's barriers to housing. I mean, I don't have to tell you this, Mr. Mayor, but your listeners need to know. Like, it's go tell people and go ask people, because sometimes people who have succeeded despite this, they still have that cloud over their head, and it's still a handicap, and it's still a bitterness for them, and a shame, and a barrier to dignity. And one of our colleagues, because she was a colleague of yours too, Mr. Mayor, out of the city of Detroit, our sister Tanisha Yancey. She's bold enough to talk about this, but she's a representative, and she had some mistakes when she was 19, and she still can't get out from underneath those. But with this new bill package, she's going to be able to get those things off her record.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, thank you for all the great work that you've done. And so I will turn it back to the panel. And I know that restorative justice is very much important. And I know that our 2 doctors here are world traveled. And so do you have any questions for Representative Legrand as it relates to this, or even you, Tony, as a ex-Marine world traveled? Any questions for him that you can pose on behalf of some of the listeners that may not be able to ask the questions? And then I think I have one from Facebook. I will be asking you a question, Representative Legrand. Any questions from our panel?
This is Dr. Reynolds. This is just so encouraging. And the thought that came to mind, if there's a young person who wants to go in law enforcement or into the armed forces or public safety, does this open up their opportunities, their employment opportunities?
Absolutely. And the medical field is so restrictive on this. I mean, I had a young lady the other day who she had one little minor $10 shoplifting thing in her past. And she got all the way through her nursing program and got to her rotation and they blocked her. So yes, this is so, and the problem is convictions get overused, right? I mean, this is something, it's a way to be prejudiced. You can use it as an excuse, even if it doesn't matter. So to have these things off your record so they don't get brought up in employment conversations, in housing conversations, in licensing conversations, you're absolutely right. It's going to make a difference for law enforcement, military service, medical careers, all of those fields. So that's why this is so important. Sometimes it's going to help people get jobs, but a lot of times it's going to help people get better jobs.
That's great. And then
Right.
Question from Facebook. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Reynolds.
I just said thank you.
Okay. Yeah. The question from Facebook, is there any fees attached to this? And I think I know the answer to the question, but I'm going to let you answer that, Representative Legrand.
Yeah, and this is why automatic expungement I ultimately am so excited about, because there are fees. Unfortunately, it's a $50 fee to the state to have the Michigan State Police do a background check and verify your record, so verify you're eligible. And unfortunately, there's no getting around that. But also, of course, the problem is a lot of us don't talk for a living, and we don't know the legal process, and so often people at least feel the need to hire lawyers, and that's something that the mayor has been helping with, because the expungement fairs, you can help people do the work for free, the part that sometimes lawyers have to get hired to do, and that's so important. That is such an important community service, because so many people, lawyers are expensive. I mean, I'm a lawyer, and unfortunately, hiring me to do legal work, not cheap and not something a lot of people can afford. So especially people who are held down by, the shadow of things in their past, because they're not the people who are making a lot of money and can afford things. So unfortunately, there is a $50 fee for the search. But like there and other groups in our communities have at least been working to try to help people get around the need for a lawyer. And that's that huge service, Mr. Mayor. I can't thank you enough. That's absolutely critical.
And one of the things that we found out when I was the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, when we look at overzealous prosecution, especially of people of color, and then also the plea bargain system, right, where probably 90% of the cases usually ends up in a plea bargain. And so what happens is that, you have underrepresented people in communities of color. And so when they get to a position that may find themselves in need of a lawyer, when they're being prosecuted, many cases are pled out, right? And so they say, well, we'll give you a reduced sentence, and help me out, Legrand, if I'm saying it wrong, but a reduced sentence, but you plead to this particular felony, and then you get to go home and you have this felony on your record, but you just move on with life, right? And so carrying a concealed weapon.
And that's, yeah, let me interrupt you. I mean, this is why you and I were so urgent, and I'm still urgent. I mean, you're still urgent on it too, but you're not in the legislature. This is why I'm so urgent to reform the cash bond system, because that's where so many people, they want to go home. They want to go take care of their families. They want to keep the jobs. They want to see if they can keep their housing. And if they're in this coercive position where they can't bond out, they'll take any deal that'll let them get home. But then they wind up with that conviction, like a stone around their neck. It follows them around for the rest of their lives. And all they wanted to do was get home, and so they pled to things that maybe they didn't even do. And that is a huge silent injustice in our system. And so that's why cash bond reform is so important. And I've been working on that, and because you were part of the package. I've got a package in the legislature, and it's been pending for years. The problem, again, what you refer to is that barriers of access to moving those things forward. No one can tell me that the cash bond system is justice. It is a huge injustice in our society. But we're not doing anything about it yet. So, I'm going to keep praying for me to work on that. And I'm not letting go. And I'm going to keep working, just like I worked on expungement, and just like you worked on these issues. Mm-hmm. We got to keep working. But yes, that is a huge injustice, is when you have people in a position of weakness and offer them that they can go home. Sometimes they will take a conviction just so they can go, take care of their families.
Right. And a cash bond bill package, and people don't understand is that once you introduce a bill package and you can't get any traction on it, right, you have to wait till the next legislative session to try again. So it's every legislative session is every 2 years. The bill package and what Representative Legrand just described is still on the floor now, and they're getting ready to engage in what you call the lame duck season, right? So you're going to have this big mad rush to try to produce bills and get bills moving, right? And so we had no traction on it when you first introduced this, and this was early in 2019 when you produced the bill package, and I was one of the members that was a part of that. And so those bills are still stuck in committee, or where are they at right now?
They haven't even had a committee hearing, Mr. Mayor, and that's sad, right? Because it's such an urgent thing. The problem, and I don't mean to be bitter, but the reality of the country we live in is power answers to power, and we're talking about a circumstance that really only affects people who don't have wealth. Well, people who don't have wealth don't have their voices heard as effectively, and that's a tragedy, but it's a reality. And that's why the work you do and your wife does every day is so important, because and I don't mean to, I do mean to bring this back to faith, but Jesus Christ was the first person that laid this out. Like, everybody matters. Mm-hmm. Everybody matters, and nobody matters more than anybody else. And that's a cornerstone of democracy, but it's also a cornerstone of being a moral human being. And we need to keep banging that drum.
Right. And the building blocks to justice is one block at a time. And so we see what I say, a lot of energy being used that, in as far as these things talking about we need justice, but we need people to advocate for bill packages, to have a hearing that's going to empower a system. I sit, fortunately, now as the mayor of the city of Flint. And so by executive orders and by the co-equal branch of government and their confirmation of some of the things that we've done here, I can expedite those things in this position. But when we're in a position of not weakness, but in a subordinate position to power structure, which is the Democrats are now subordinates to the Republicans there, that good bill packages for poor to moderate income families that can change the trajectory of how they live is being held. And so we need the armies, we need the soldiers to really execute on their energies to advocate in those ways effectively where we can change lives. And so we have to have a list of demands, and then we have to have an action plan. Hope is not a strategy. We need to be able to effectuate on these particular things. And so that's what we've done when I was in the House, working with champions like David Legrand, working with champions like Dr. Furholden and Dr. Reynolds, and also Tony Turner. We put plans together, execute upon the plans, and then we said that our strategy is in place. Now let's hope our strategy engages a winning philosophy in the minds and hearts of people, not allowing frustration and other emotions to cloud their judgment as we go forth to really what happens and what works. And so I issued a statement about the Breonna Taylor verdict. I'm asking and petitioning the Attorney General of the United States of America to look into this case and how they came up with this particular decision. I did that officially for my official role. I'm not sure, but I may be the only elected official. I know I'm the only elected official in the state of Michigan who issued a public statement and a stance on that. That is a stance that only can be supported by those of like thinking. Stand with that. We can talk about our frustration, but we have to engage with a motive of change. The Attorney General of the country can do that. They can engage in a federal investigation to this. That is another option that we have. Protest means something. And Dr. Frodo, I'm gonna give you a couple words because I know I usually we when David and I get on the line, we get kind of emotional a little bit about the things that's happening, but these are all great pieces and positive news. And I know I let Tony Turner, I don't want him to get too relaxed because he still has work to do. But Dr. Furholden, from what you heard today, I'm gonna give you just a few words to talk about anything that you want to talk about. Dr. Furholden?
I was being brilliant on mute. Okay.
Yes.
I think this is a great conversation, and it's nice to hear how everything is sort of moving in the positive and in the right direction. I just want to highlight a couple of things. I was on with you all earlier on the radio. I hit one wrong button and then I got disconnected. So I want to make sure I highlight a couple of things. Number one, that our COVID case rate doubled in the last week. Almost doubled. That's not counting true. Almost doubled. That means of the people who are being tested, the number of those among those who are getting tested that are positive is going up. Too early to tell exactly what that means, but I want to make sure that I encourage people to stay vigilant. There's another study that just came out that says 50% of people who tested positive for COVID within the last 2 weeks have been in a restaurant in the last 2 weeks. I don't think there's anything particularly bad about restaurants, but I think that's a symbol for is people who are moving out and about and out in the world. So I just want to encourage people. I know we've all got, COVID fever, cabin fever. Everybody's tired of this and over it and ready to get back to some semblance of normal. But the best thing that we can do is keep ourselves and our families safe. And that's to sort of minimize your exposure out in the world, et cetera. I'm assuming you guys talked about the governor's new executive order, which is allowing some things to open up. Most of these places will only be able to operate at 20 or 30% capacity. I encourage people, we have to honor this slow phased process. Because if we go too fast and too far too fast, what'll happen is we'll get things will potentially completely out of control again. So it's important that we do this in steps, see what happens with each one of those steps, and then can make a decision whether or not we can continue to go forward or whether or not we need to go back. And I've been telling everybody, if you like or don't like what you see or what's happening in our world, realize that many of the people who are making the decisions were elected or appointed by the people that we elected. So now more than ever, your vote matters. It is your way to have a say and help shape the world that we live in. And so if you're not, registered or if you're not sure, I've been asking everybody to go to vote.org. It's a site that was set up by the Transformative Justice Coalition. You can trust them. All kinds of crazy stuff has happened. People have been purged from the rolls without even knowing it. So go check, make sure you're there, make sure your friends, your family are there. If they're not, be a friend to somebody up and get registered. In-person voting is open in Michigan. I've been telling everybody, plan your vote, vote your plan, know what it is that you're going to do, get that well planned out, and then be ready to execute that. And then also be a source of support for another. You got a sick, elderly, shut in, et cetera, loved one, somebody with a pre-existing condition that really shouldn't be out in person at the polls. You could be that person collecting up mail ballots, dropping them off on voter day so people have a sense of community and know that their vote got cast. There's all kinds of things that we can all do, but I just want to encourage people now more than ever. The vote really matters. So plan your vote, vote your plan. And that's it. Thanks for having me.
Well, awesome. Thank you for the work that you've done. We're almost at the end of our Facebook Burst program, but I definitely want to make sure, reminding people we still have a fight on blight in our community. As you look over my left shoulder, you see the fight on blight. Right now, Councilman Alan Griggs has informed me that they're on I-69. Let me make sure. He's between Grand Traverse and Hammerberg Road, cleaning up with his Fight on Blight team right now. Fight on Blight is our community, it's our home, it's our pride. Don't let people dump trash into our community. If you know and see people illegally dumping trash in our community, please call Crime Stoppers. It's an anonymous tip line. You can earn up to $1,000 for reporting illegal dumpers of garbage in our community. Don't allow people to come to our community to disrespect it. Don't allow your neighbors or friends or family to do so. Mattresses don't grow out of the front lawns. Couches don't grow out of concrete. Tires just doesn't end up in abandoned homes. We need to make sure that we keep a cleaner community. So we're offering rewards up to $1,000 for tips that may lead to an arrest of those that's illegally dumping and disrespecting our community. This is our home. Fight on blight. We need everyone. I have 6 laborers working in the city of Flint to clean up blight, full 34 square miles of real estate in the city of Flint. 6 people can't keep up. I know we're frustrated, we're angry, but we all have to engage in this fight. It's more good people than bad people doing these things, but the good people have to team up against these bad actors in our community. Don't allow them to disrespect your home. This is our home. This is our home. So let's not preach on a problem, but activate on a solution. You can earn up to $1,000. It's anonymous tips. Everybody has a cell phone. If you see them dumping, commercial dumpers, take a picture of the vehicle, take a picture of the license plates, turn it into the anonymous tip line, and we can catch them, arrest them, and make a good example of them about they should not disrespect our home. Fight on blight. So please continue to keep everyone lifted in prayer. Love your neighbor. Praise is an act of your actions. Let's do the good work that God has called us to do in every aspect of our lives. And so I want to thank David Legrand, Representative Legrand. Congratulations on your bill package being on the governor's desk. I'm going to advocate. I'll be in Lansing with the Attorney General for some meetings this Wednesday. So I'll stop by if you guys are still in session just to say hello to some of my old colleagues. I miss you guys. But I'm off doing some real difficult work here in the city of Flint, but I'm enjoying it. And I will definitely look you up once I'm there. Dr. Verhoeven, thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for being the vice chair of the Citizens Advisory Task Force. Tony Turner, get to work. Give me that last 6%. Get us up to 100%. Let's break all records. If we're going to break the record, let's go ahead and just blow it out. And my new role model, my new confidant, and my counsel, Dr. Reynolds. Thank you for guiding us through this pandemic. Thank you for the lives that we have saved together in this community. Thank you for your bold stance on the communities committees that you sit and represent the city of Flint on. And I'll give you all the opportunity just to say goodbye to our Facebook Burst listeners. Representative Legrand.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Keep up the good work.
Yeah. Verhoeven, Dr. Verhoeven.
Yeah, I echo that. Keep up the good work. Thank you for your partnership and your leadership during what I can only describe as turbulent times. It's an honor to serve.
Thank you. Tony.
Sir, thank you for everything. Appreciate all the hard lifting. I know it's done in love. Appreciate everything.
All right. And my guy, Dr. Lawrence Reynolds.
You put a burden on me, but what I'll say, before you react, reflect, and remember your biggest weapon is your ability to think critically. And in order to do that, you need knowledge, you must read, and you need wisdom so you know when to apply that knowledge.
Absolutely. And once again, I want to tell Mom I love you, and we're getting ready to go out to breakfast. And then we're going to have, it's the prayer chain day here in the back parking lot of City Hall. But this is not an activity organized by the city of Flint. This was a request, and we're allowing it to happen here today at noon. So God bless you guys. See you soon next week. Let's all keep up the great fight. Thank you, guys.